Hello, dear passengers. This is your captain speaking, and we are about to take off for another episode of Adventulina. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of hopefully your favorite travel podcast, Adventulina. It's already March, and for everyone who lives in the States, or at least most of the states in the US, I would say happy daylight saving because now we get to enjoy brighter evenings, although we lost 1 hour of sleep, but that's a different topic. And if you get to live in a country or place where people don't do that, they don't use the daylight saving thing, just congratulations, you live in a smart country because literally no one needs that anymore. But anyway, I feel like there is so much to tell you guys in general that maybe this episode is not even going to be enough to cover all the details. But the biggest and most recent update is still my Bolivian trip. As you remember, and you probably saw on my Instagram, I went to Bolivia last month in February, and this was my first South American experience. I gotta say, an amazing one. I have never been asked more about a destination. I swear to God, I feel like going to Bolivia sounded so weird to some people that they got very curious why I picked that destination. I actually decided to include some questions about Bolivia at the end of either this or the next episode. So hopefully, I can help someone who's considering a trip there. And for those of you who don't know, Bolivia is home to a place that had been on my bucket list, on my travel bucket list for years, for a few years. The name of the place is Salar de Uyuni, and it is the biggest salt flats on the planet. So during the raining season from December to April, the surface of the salt flats is covered with a thin layer of water, and this creates a mirror effect known as the largest mirror on the planet. So this was the main reason for me to want to go there. Of course, once I started doing my research, I found so many other things to see and do. And it didn't take long until I realized that we would need at least 10 days for Bolivia for, first time visitors. A few days after we came back from Mexico, we wanted to kind of decide on a next destination. And I had Bolivia in my mind because I wanted to go to South America so bad. And I also knew from my research that, as I said, the best time to see the mirror effect of the South Flats was between December and April. A lot of places on the internet even like emphasized on February as a safe choice because sometimes later it gets drier and you may not see the mirror effect. So with coming back from Mexico in January, it was kind of clear that we needed to act fast and book our tickets to Bolivia very soon. For a moment, we were thinking about going to Brazil for the carnival in February, but I think my mind was already set up on Bolivia. And as much as I would love to go to Brazil one day, I just wanted to go to Bolivia first. And, maybe the fact that we will have to wait another year to see Salar de Uyuni and the mirror effect just made me take the decision. And this was one of the times when, after a quick travel dilemma, I had to include one of my silly games to help me pick a destination. I think in one of the previous episodes, I was telling you guys how I use the website with a fortune wheel. So you add all your options and you just spin it. And you gotta go, to whichever destination the wheel picks for you. And it's fun. And this time, even the wheel just choose the same destination as me, just completely covered my destination and my choice. So a few days after we came back from Mexico, we found ourselves already being excited and looking forward to another destination, another adventure in less than 4 weeks. And I feel like we didn't even have proper time to comprehend the whole experience in Mexico. And we were already prepping for another trip, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining from, but as much as I love this intensity, I sometimes think that I could probably allow myself a little bit more time in between trips so I can just reflect on everything that happened. I don't know. I talk like this now, but I'm sure I'm not gonna sit around and wait for time to pass so I can book another vacation. That's not who I am, so I guess I'm fine. Anyway, the trip started for me the usual way. Before going to Bolivia, everything was just in a rush, finishing 1,000 things last moment, like having 16 errands to run the night before. And no matter how prepared I was and how well I knew what I was taking with me, And other chores just made the evening before leaving so hectic and stressful that I just couldn't wait to get on the plane, honestly. And the worst part of my evening before the flight was that I went to bed with a really annoying pain in the neck. And I'm not talking about the phrase we use when someone's being annoying. I'm saying literal pain in the neck. So I remember tossing and turning and praying to God to fall asleep because I knew I had to get up in maybe 3 hours. And by the time I fell asleep, my alarm literally rang. So I got up and shit, like I could barely move my neck, like my neck, my back. But all jokes aside, the pain was so strong that I couldn't even properly like move my arms or my head. I was tearing up just having a try, and it was so bad that I was a little freaked out about how I was gonna, feel during the trip because we were about to get on 3 flights, and the last thing I needed was to deal with, such unexpected pain. And I even remember I was crying while I was getting ready and I was doing my hair because it was just the pain was unbearable. So anyway, once we got to the airport, I tried like massaging it and took some painkillers, hoping that I could at least survive the flights. And I was gonna think about the rest later. And the gate check in San Francisco at the San Francisco International Airport didn't really help because once it was our turn to board, the flight attendant started looking for something on the computer and insisted on seeing our visas for Bolivia. Here's the moment to explain about the visas. When I was researching the required documentation for visiting Bolivia, it turned out that we can apply for visas in advance or we can apply for them upon arrival. I'm the kind of person who likes everything to be ready in advance. I don't like surprises. I don't like to figure out things on the go. I don't like to rely on things that are not certain. So I knew that I would prefer getting the visa in advance. However, since we only had less than 4 weeks to put everything together for the Bolivia trip, we kind of didn't have a choice when it came to the visas. I contacted the Bulgarian consulate and they told me that I had to communicate with the Bulgarian consulate in Argentina and I would have to send my passport to them in order to get the stamp, the actual visa on one of my passport's pages. So since the visa process will require me sending my passport physically there, to have the visa attached on it, I was like, no, like I don't like this. I don't like the idea of sending my passport and waiting for it, especially when we have limited time. Like, what if they don't send it back on time? What if they lose it? I mean, I know they use, trusted shipping services, but I think we have established that my trust in humanity goes to hell once my luggage or my passport is involved. So, with the short time we had before leaving to Bolivia and with all the information I read on the internet, we just decided to do what many other people did to obtain the visas upon arrival. And finding the right documents was a real pain in the ass. And this time I'm just talking like the real phrase pain in the ass. So, uh, according to a lot of people, we needed vaccination. According to other people, it was just a recommendation. So it was a little confusing. And at the end, I decided to just go with the documents that the airline sent us as a list. So I still prepared some small things that I heard people recommending here and there. They mentioned that they got asked of. And yeah, once we were at the airport and we were boarding our first flight, as I said, the flight attendant just started asking questions, checking some stuff on the computer. He couldn't understand what document we needed to go to Bolivia, and he just called, someone else, I guess, more experienced flight attendant. So she came over, started asking questions, and checked if we had all the necessary documents to apply for the visas upon arrival, which we did. She tried me a few times, but I'm like, do you even know who you're talking about? No, I'm just kidding. But literally, like, she should have known that for a control freak like me, there is no way for me to miss any document. But at the end, she was happy with what she heard and she let us board. So by the time we were in Los Angeles after our first flight, I could feel some relief from my goddamn pain. And I felt, a little better. I was excited for our second flight because it was going to be 8+ hours. And, I was just thinking of what I'm going to do to kind of like entertain myself. And all of a sudden, I realized that I forgot my book. And God knows how much I need my book on, such long flight. And I was so bummed because I had just finished another book and I was about to start a new one, a book that I was super excited for, and I just didn't take it. And, it was the perfect place to dive into it. I had nothing to do for 8+ hours, and we also got middle plane seats. So without my window, you better give me my book. So there was no book, and I felt really bummed. So I had to get some other kind of entertainment. And during our not long layover in LA, I quickly went to one of the bookstores and I got a travel quiz book. I had also forgotten my pen. I know. What was I even packing for my onboard time? Just so embarrassing. Anyway, I got a pen from the bookstore as well. So, boarding our second flight in Los Angeles was pretty easy. The airport there had already adopted the face recognition at many of the gates, so no documents or scanning of barcodes is required. You just walk, get your face recognized, and you board. It's way easier than San Francisco Airport, for example, and many other airports. Once we got in our seats, I was impatient to try the travel quiz book, but the freaking pen that I bought didn't work. I was like, no, like I didn't have a book. I got one, and this book required writing on it, because you give answers to the quizzes. So I got a pen, and now the freaking pen didn't work. So I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do? But thank God we still had some time until taking off. So I just quickly ran to the flight attendants and I asked them for a pen. So they gave me a nice Latam Airlines pen. The book I actually really liked. Like, it's not the usual type of things I read, but it was kind of fun to check my knowledge, on travel topics and also to learn new stuff. So the flight was from Los Angeles to Lima, Peru, and it wasn't full. Actually, there were quite a few empty seats. We had the seat between us empty, which was perfect because there was, nothing better to have this seat empty on an 8+ hour flight. Just extra space and not having to deal with strangers. I'll take it anytime. So I was already in a good mood. I had figured out the book and, the pen as well. I was in my seat and my show friends was already playing on the screen and food was about to come any moment. And I gotta say, this is one of the best travel experiences and honestly one of my most favorite feelings ever. Like being on a plane, watching my favorite show friends on my way to a new destination with food coming my way. I mean, name something better. I'm waiting. I'm fed. I'm entertained. I'm about to arrive at an unknown land. Like, what more is needed, honestly? I was even able to nap a little bit, which almost never happens, and my neck pain was almost gone. So, I felt way more comfortable. The flight was great overall. We got to eat and snack maybe 4 times, which was perfect for my always hungry ass. Like, we landed in Lima, Peru, went through immigration, which was so chill that it felt like they really didn't care about anything, if I have to be honest. Like, when they saw my Bulgarian passport, they literally took a look at some printed out sheet and they probably, didn't even know about the existence of my country. I don't know. But after checking something, they just said, go. So I went. We spent a few hours at the airport in Lima. We got to recharge, eat, use the Wi Fi, and then we headed to our gate for our third and last flight, Lima, Peru to La Paz, Bolivia. It was a short 1 hour flight, but I guess they overbooked or something because we were approached by the staff and we were told that we would have to check in our carry on. Whoever has been here before and whoever has listened to previous episodes of my podcast knows that I don't like checking in my luggage. And the reason I came with a carry on most likely is because I didn't want you to check in my luggage. So I'm sorry, but I don't trust you and I don't even feel bad saying it. Like, it's just who I am and how I feel. So for me to come on a 10-day trip with a carry on when being a woman means that I sacrificed some stuff and limited myself and my luggage so I can fit in the required space for a carry on. And for you to want to check in my carry on because you overbooked, no, I'm sorry. Just find another way. Like, I didn't pack lighter and I didn't play Tetris with my belongings trying to avoid checking in luggage, so you can just require me to do it. No. So I didn't like what they wanted from us at all. Plus, it looked to me like we were the only ones who got asked. I don't know if it was because we were the obvious tourists, no idea, but I really didn't see many people having, the additional luggage tag that they gave us, which made me even angrier. And I asked the flight attendant, like, when you check our carry-ons, like, are we going to receive them at the plane door? As sometimes they do that, you know, or we're going to receive them at the baggage claim as everyone else who checked bags. So she said the thing that I didn't want to hear at all, which was the baggage claim. And considering we had to land in La Paz, wait at immigration, apply for a visa, I was like, no, like, where would our luggage stay in case we get delayed or the line is huge or there is a problem with entering the country, printing the visa or something like this? Like, I just can't stand the idea that my suitcase will circle around on a baggage claim far away from me unattended. No way. So we were boarding and the flight attendant came to us one more time, reminding us to leave our bags, next to the air stairs as we were boarding from the ground, not from a sleeve. And I was already approaching the air stairs and I was like, you know what? No one even knows I have to give my carry on. I will just play dumb and that's it. So I put my personal item and my jacket on the top of my carry on in a way to cover the tag that they added to my suitcase. And I turned around and I heard my boyfriend who saw me doing that. He was like, go, go, go. And no one could see, that there was a tag. So I just walked around the flight attendant who was collecting items to be checked and I passed her. So no questions asked, no answers needed, right? But that worked for me only. It didn't work for him. Like, he didn't have anything to put on top of his carry-on and to cover his tag, and they saw and they took his carry-on. And I'm not gonna lie, despite him being a little screwed, I felt completely selfish. And I was glad that at least I sneaked in. Because, let me explain, I'm not a bad person. But the truth is, he doesn't care as much as I do. Like, he would be okay if he has to give his suitcase because he's not as paranoid as me. I, on the other side, I was not going to stop whining. So it was better for him to save my carry on than his. And that is the sad truth. So no one is more protective than me when it comes to my carry-on. I swear to God, like, female lions defend their cubs less intensely. Seriously. But anyway, once on the plane, I carefully, ripped the tag from my carry-on and I hid it in my pocket because I didn't want someone to see the tag while I was like lifting my suitcase to the overhead bins. And there was a nice surprise after that. Actually, we got the emergency exit row, which means more leg room, way more leg room. And another thing is that on emergency exit rows, even your personal items have to go in the overhead bins because that's just the rule, that's the policy. Now that I'm thinking about it, what if that was the reason for them to ask us check in our luggage? But they never said anything related to our seats and the emergency exit rows. So I'm like, okay, if it was this, you should have explained to us and we would have been like happy to give our suitcases. We didn't get to enjoy this emergency exit rows and the space we had for that much because the flight was literally only 1 hour, but that was our luck. And this was the last leg of our trip. We were so tired. We had been up for more than 24 hours at this point, and we had traveled during most of them. And thank God my shoulder at least was better. But despite everything going as planned, I couldn't shake the feeling of, being a little unprepared. I didn't like the fact that we were landing in a country without a visa. And despite how many people claimed they did the same, I was a little anxious. I realize, a lot of people do it, but for a control freak like me, this is hell. And I literally consider everything a possible failure in most cases. So landing with no visa, no money exchanged yet, since, there's no Bolivian currency here in the US, and no phone service. Like, now we also had to think about the carry-on that we had to, take from the baggage claim. It was just too much. But anyway, we landed and got to immigration. The airport was not big at all. Looked like we were gonna maybe go kind of fast. On top of that, we could see the baggage claim right behind the officers at immigration, so it felt like we shouldn't worry about, the suitcase anymore. One of the biggest challenges when you visit Bolivia and more South American countries is actually the high altitude. So La Paz, the capital of Bolivia, one of the capitals of Bolivia actually, because Interestingly, Bolivia has two capitals, but a little bit about that later. So La Paz is located at almost 12,000 feet above sea level, which is like 3,600 meters, and this makes the city the highest capital city in the world. So people who have been to places like this and people that I know from Bolivia warned me about that and said that, we will most likely experience some weird moments, some dizziness after landing, and even during the first few days. And I don't know if I was tripping or I was, looking for something to happen. But while we were waiting at immigration, I really felt dizzy. Like I could tell there was something happening. And of course, let's not forget that, we had already been awake for more than 24 hours. We had been on three flights in three countries across two continents. And I think any kind of discomfort would sound accurate. Although I remember taking a look at myself in one of the mirrors in the waiting area, and I was like, why am I white as a ghost? And in fact, I had prepared more than we actually needed. But of course, it's better to have more things and not use them than to need something that you don't have. Another nice surprise came after that. The visa fee when you enter Bolivia depends on the country your passport is from or your nationality. So as a Bulgarian, I got to pay a cheaper fee comparing to American citizens, for example. And I was like, finally, another advantage of me being Bulgarian, because it doesn't really happen for me to experience things like this here. And there were definitely differences in the visa process upon arrival from what we expected. Everyone on the internet was repeating and emphasizing on, having cash for the visa fee, and not just having cash, but having brand new crisp US dollar bills. Another thing was the photo we were supposed to bring. Like people kept saying how you need at least two photos, blah, 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 certain, specs of it. We got there, we get to the person who's helping us with the visa process, and literally the first thing I see on the glass in front of me is a sticker for payment with debit and credit cards being available, and I see the camera that is going to take our photos. And I'm like, why did I even bother to go to the ATM to get good cash, or, to go to the photo last moment and to get those photos? We didn't need any of these things. I'm actually kind of happy that we didn't get to use the photos that we brought from San Francisco because they were horrible. But more about this, maybe another episode, because I'm getting angry just thinking about it. I'll tell you guys the story another time. While we were waiting in the line for our visas, I spotted my boyfriend's suitcase sitting lonely next to one of the baggage claims, and it turned out that we could even go and grab it even if we hadn't passed immigration yet, which was great and definitely a relief. So, with visas in our passports and a little disoriented from many hours of traveling and, starting to deal with the altitude sickness, we headed towards the exit of the airport. We just quickly stopped to exchange some money. The rate, of course, was not good, but we just needed some cash as we landed very early on a Sunday, and we weren't sure if we're gonna find like open, exchange places, because banks for sure were not gonna work the next day. So we just wanted to be safe. Also bought this pill that my Bolivian friend recommended. I think it's called Soroji pill. It's for altitude sickness, and yeah, we just took one and got outside to get a cab and finally go to our hotel. And this was one of the things that multiple people warned me about for Bolivia, taking cabs. So everyone was emphasizing on how careful we have to be and how we should only use, the services of legit companies. And while this is, applicable everywhere, I guess it was very bad in Bolivia. So that's why people kept, reminding us about this. Another thing that few people told me, most of them local people, was to never take out your phone in a public place and to be very careful when you take photos and stuff. I was a little, reserved when I was taking out my phone, and I was very careful. But I want to say there was not even one time when I felt like scared or nervous, or like I would notice someone who is maybe like targeting me or something. And it was weird because so many people told me stories about being in La Paz, for example, at one of the most touristy places. Thank God we didn't get to experience anything like that. Maybe we were lucky, I don't know, but yeah, just keep that in mind if you go. And I got the info of two taxi companies in advance, but we didn't have service, so having this info was kind of useless. But we went to the information desk at the airport and, asked which company we should use. And the woman literally just kind of assigned us a driver right away. And I gotta say, despite how tired and dizzy we were on the way to the hotel, I was amazed by the view of the city. Guys, I had never seen anything like that. Like, this was probably the best airport road I've ever seen. Like, La Paz is so unique, and seeing it for the first time after leaving the airport at sunrise was just, I don't know, the beginning of the excitement of being at a new destination. Our driver even pulled over so we could take a photo at one super scenic part of the road. So we drove through La Paz, maybe took us like 15 minutes to reach the hotel, and we were already there. So that was gonna be our home for the next 2 nights, or more accurately, like night and a half, because we literally arrived at the hotel 6 a.m. in the morning after 24 plus hours of traveling, and we weren't gonna wait to check in at 2 or 3 p.m. That's absurd. So we just booked the room for the night before as well, and we were going to be able to check in anytime, literally to walk in and to go to bed immediately. We did that two more times during our stay in Bolivia to book a hotel for nights that we didn't fully use. Maybe we arrived very early in the morning, but I can't say how happy I am that we did that, and I'll tell you why later. So, exhausted and barely keeping our eyes open, we took quick showers and went to bed when it was already bright outside. So we slept for about 3 hours, I want to say, and woke up completely messed up. Like, messed up, but determined to explore La Paz. And I gotta say, this was one of the hardest times for me to get up while traveling. Like, the combination of being freaking exhausted from the long travel and fighting the high altitude just made me look like a clown when I woke up. Like, I couldn't believe how tired I looked and felt. And I even took a photo of myself, which I'm not sure I will ever show to anyone. But still, like, I just had to, I had to document it. And for a second, for a very brief second, I was considering staying in bed for a little longer and maybe going out to explore La Paz later. But then the travel cycle in me just started, talking and convincing me to get up, because you're not here to chill, bitch. You're here to see as much as possible. So, even if that comes with the price of your comfort, just get up and go. So we went out, and our first day in La Paz was amazing. Still weird because of the tiredness and the weird climate we were in, but the things we saw and experienced were so worth it that we literally forgot that we were dealing with all of this. So my Bolivian friend, shout out to Tatiana if she's listening and watching, she gave me a whole list of snacks, street food, drinks, meals and stuff, and I gotta say I tried most of them. We also went to some places she recommended, but overall during our first day it was mostly La Paz downtown. We also checked out the popular witches market, or Mercado de las Brujas, where you can find literally everything, literally, and so many souvenirs and traditional stuff. So I guarantee you, you would have a hard time picking. Like, I was in hell in a way because I'm so indecisive when it comes to souvenirs. We also visited the San Francisco Basilica, which was funny because we came from San Francisco. We visited the Coca Museum. It was super interesting. We learned so much. We also walked around, some of the iconic buildings of La Paz, spotted some popular streets and their views, tried to, eat as much street food as we could. And we finally got to probably the most popular attraction of La Paz, which is their cable cars. So I live in San Francisco, and for me, the cable cars are the trolleys. They go up and down the streets. Well, in La Paz, the cable cars, known as Mi Teleférico, are actual aerial gondolas, urban transit system. So I believe there are 7 or 8 lines that cover a huge part of the city, and this transit system is the most used commute there from locals, and it's also the most popular tourist attraction. It's kind of fascinating if you think about it. So the cable cars in San Francisco, the ones on the ground, are mostly for tourists. Like, it's very rare for locals to use them for transportation. However, in La Paz, it's exactly the opposite. Like, the city location and the landscape of the city just makes walking and driving super like complicated. So the cable cars are actually a main way of transportation for locals, and I would say an absolute attraction, because the view from up there, the view while riding, is just amazing. Like, I could honestly just sit and ride from line to line without even getting off. I had never been so high in the sky while moving and enjoying the views. And as someone who has stepped on most of the world's most famous observation decks and the tallest ones, I claim with the biggest responsibility that the view from the cable cars in La Paz absolutely beats every single observation I've been on. Like, you just cannot beat that view. And it's not even what you see, but how you see it, and the fact that you're moving while seeing it. Like, I don't know. It's probably like super hard to understand. Maybe it doesn't make sense, but I don't know. I guess you just have to experience it. If you have been there, you guys would know what I mean. And I would be curious to hear if there are any other people who liked the cable cars as much as me, because for me, that was probably the most unique experience in La Paz specifically. So it was a longest day. And once we got back to the hotel, we realized that this calendar day started while we were at the airport in Lima, Peru. And since then, we had traveled from Peru to Bolivia. We had passed immigration and obtained visas. We had checked into the hotel and even slept for a few hours. We had also explored a big chunk of La Paz attractions, and it was still the same calendar day. Like, I couldn't believe it. It felt cruel, honestly. So we just wrapped up, this exhausting first day with a very basic and tasteless dinner, just because we completely forgot that it's Sunday and everything was closed. So we literally ate whatever was available. All we wanted was to go to bed at a reasonable time and, to wake up fresh and rested for the next morning. Because the next day we were leaving for Copacabana, which is a small and really charming town located at the Titicaca Lake, about 4 hours away from La Paz. And our bus ride was at 8 a.m., so we knew it was going to be another exciting and super long day coming. Although I think it's unnecessary to say that every single day of our 10-day trip was exciting and super long. So here comes a funny story about me having not my first fight or argument in Spanish, but I want to say being rude in Spanish. And hear me out. It's not like I was mean or anything. It was a situation that completely deserved this kind of treatment. There was an absolute reason. So I'm gonna tell you this story in the next episode, along with many other Bolivian things. So you guys stay tuned, and thank you so much for listening and watching. And I'll see you soon. Until then, bon voyage!